Better? You hear me? We're good? All right, sorry about that. Good morning. Welcome to Haven Berkeley Faith Community, our virtual service. As always, we're going to begin with some musical worship. So I will be singing. You are welcome to sing along. You'll be muted, or you can listen. Whatever's going to help you connect this morning. Make me. We're going to turn things over this morning to April for our welcome and announcements.
Hey, good morning. My name is April. On behalf of Haven, I want to welcome you today to our virtual Sunday service. Especially for those of you who are here for the first time, we're glad you're joining us this morning. Our mission here at Haven Berkeley is to create a safe place for all kinds of people to grow in a meaningful connection with others and with God. So we hope you'll experience some of that when you're here with us today. A word on how we're streaming the service today. Our web stream is sent from Zoom to YouTube. We try our best to only send videos of those of you who are presenting to the group through our live stream. But if you're concerned about your videos appearing publicly, you can just always keep your video camera turned off during the service. After service, we'll stop the live stream, and those of you in the Zoom are welcome to hang out for a casual chat until 12:30. Also, please be aware that we are doing our best with a number of protocols to keep our Zoom gathering safe and secure. But if, however, at some point it becomes clear that someone has entered the gathering with the intent to cause harm, we may shut down the meeting, and new meeting credentials will be sent through Slack and posted throughout the email list to resume the meeting in a safe manner. So the first thing is the Martin's virtual group will host another documentary discussion on Wednesday, May 6th at 8 p.m. Everyone in the broader Haven community is invited to join the Martin's virtual group for a discussion of the film Crip Camp. You can watch it on Netflix before May 6th and then come into the Zoom gathering to discuss. Depending on the size of the group, we may split it into breakout groups for some of the time so that all of you who want to participate can. You can watch for Zoom info on Slack and feel free to reach out to Leah with any questions for more information. The next thing is for Jean to speak about is the Haven Midweek Connection.
Jason, I can't spotlight it from my computer. I'll just go. How are you guys doing? Are you tired of this question yet? Sometimes I am, because it's difficult to find articulation to how things are going. This week, I learned from a psychologist trained in trauma recovery that what we're experiencing right now is what she calls a sustained crisis, as opposed to a crisis that has happened once and then it's over, such as a natural disaster. And because this is a sustained crisis that is going on for an unknown time, it leads us to activation and taxing of our responses. So we find ourselves bouncing in and out of distress. Does that resonate? Is that a better articulation of how things are going? Well, she went on to share many ways and tools to help dealing with those times of distress, some of the ways we are learning this morning. But she also talked about during this time, it's important for us to create spaces or rituals that allow for healing and comfort. We hope that our Sunday morning gatherings have been that for all of you, but we would like to be more intentional in calling out our midweek time, not just a place to check in, but a space or ritual of healing and hope. So what does that time look like? We'll spend time inviting the divine to meet us where we are through our worship songs and mindfulness, prayer, and experiences. And we'll also provide time to hold each other's cares. We hope that this pause in the week can become your space of grounding during this time of uncertainty. If you desire to hold space for the divine presence, please join us on Wednesday from 12:30 to 1:30. You can come for all of the time or just drop in and out as you have time. This past Wednesday was our first attempt at this, and I personally found it life-giving and good for my soul. I'm glad we are trying to create this space. And also, if this is something that you would like in your week, but this time is not good, please reach out to Leah or myself, and we can find a time that works better for those who'd appreciate this space. I will turn it back to April for the rest of the announcements and morning prayer.
Thank you. Now we're going to take a moment for the community announcements. If anyone has something they want to share for about 30 seconds or less, they can raise their hands through Zoom and we'll have to unmute you, or you can simply put your announcement in the chat window. Let's see. I don't see anything other than somebody named Crystal. Hello. She's new, so welcome. Oh, tomorrow is Star Wars Day. So May the 4th. Okay. That's funny. So now, will you please join me in praying our opening prayer together? Creative and loving God, we come into your presence as a community seeking safety, deeper spirituality, and the sense of home. We thank you that you are the God who calls each of us from wherever we come and includes us fully in your family. In this community, we seek equal space for every race, every ethnicity, every gender, and every orientation. Let us make room here for rich and poor, ability and disability, left and right, belief and doubt. In a world that labels and divides, help us live together in acceptance and unity, finding you in the midst of all we do. Amen. Now we'll turn it over to Leah to introduce this theme for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, April. Good morning again, everyone. I'm so glad you're with us. Today we're doing something a little different. Okay, the rhythm that we have settled into in this era of virtual services is to alternate between Sundays where we have a more traditional for us kind of virtual service, complete with a teaching by myself or someone from the Haven teaching team. And then Sundays like today, where we have either a community conversation or we explore a theme together through a variety of sacred experiences. And that's what we're going to make space to do this morning. I'm calling the theme for this morning, Exploring Embodiment. And I'm calling it that because I found myself thinking recently about how disembodying this whole transition to virtual work, virtual school, virtual socializing, virtual church, how disembodying all of that has been. Okay, people have become reduced for us to faces like mine on a screen. And while I'm sure many of us are grateful that there are still ways we can stay connected in some fashion, ways to gather like we're doing now, these ways of gathering aren't without cost. I think it's important to name that. We feel the loss of human bodies in a room together, sharing space together, touching one another, hearing each other's voices as we sing. Oh, I miss it so much. Picking up on one another's nonverbal cues, right? And we may even become aware that perhaps we are becoming disconnected from our own bodies, as we're called to focus simply on what we can project through a webcam. Now, it's not just this COVID-19 experience that's had me thinking about the importance of exploring embodiment as a community. The truth is, even before pandemic life, if we're honest, many of us have taken journeys of faith that have not really done a good job of naming the integration of our spirits with our bodies. Particularly those of us who personally identify with the Jesus tradition, we have to acknowledge that historically, our faith has often been expressed and interpreted in a very dualistic way. Faith's often been pursued as an act of the mind, or maybe the disembodied soul, which needs to master and tame the disorderly body. We may have been taught to fear and fight our bodies, lest they lead us to sin. Other cultural forces outside the church may have told us that our bodies are objects to project forward. They might tell us we are how our body is perceived. Our body's role is to earn approval, to prove ourselves worthy as the body proves us desirable. This also leads to the disordered connection with our physical being. But I believe none of this is actually true to the heart of Jesus-centered faith. The Jewish world, which nurtured Jesus himself, was actually profoundly integrated, understanding humans as created to be whole creatures in which spirit and body are completely unified. One of the primary words that Scripture uses for spirit was also understood in the ancient world to mean breath. The spiritual side of us was never meant to be against our physical reality, but that which enlivened it, just like our breath. In fact, in the Jesus tradition, the story is that God then sends God's own spirit to dwell as the breath within the human body. That means God is not out there. God is in here. So today I've invited a number of folks in our community and beyond to share with us practices and reflections so that we might name together this importance of paying attention to our bodies and connecting with the divine through what's happening in our physical beings. These are just going to be little tastes, okay? We're not going to have time to explore any of these, I think, on the level that they could be explored, but I hope that you'll get a little sample of some various ways you could work to integrate body and spirit, and you can always reach out to members of our community about the things you've learned for more information or coaching. So some of these practices or ideas might be new to you. Some might feel uncomfortable. Not everything might fit you. That's okay. I'm hoping that all of us can receive today an invitation through this exploration to attend to our bodies, to celebrate them, to honor them, to grieve their losses, and to take steps forward together on the path of cultivating a holistic wisdom and connection to God. Amen? That's the hope. So, with that in mind, I'm going to turn things over first to Luca for our first practice.
Good morning. I am Luca, and today I wanted to share a little about meditation. A few years ago, I was diagnosed with a terminal brain tumor, and I was given next to no options for treatment. For me, meditation was a way to gain a bit of control over the unknown, as well as some sense of power over my own health and well-being, kind of helping to guide my own healing. If you've ever had cancer or know someone with it, then you know those things are in short supply. If you've ever prayed before, which in this area I can assume you have, then you are pretty close to proper meditation. Prayer is all about having a conversation with your creator, however you want to define that. You're communing about yourself, your life, your hopes and your expectations. You're talking about your worries and your weaknesses and your desires to persevere and overcome whatever is standing in your way of happiness. Or you're celebrating your achievements and your blessings and expressing your love and gratitude. Meditation is very similar to prayer, but it's directed inward. You're speaking with yourself and preparing your mind, your body and spirit for either what you have, what you need to understand, or what's to come. You want to begin your practice with the understanding that all you're doing is relaxing your body, just like when you're falling asleep, while keeping your mind conscious and awake. It takes relaxing, getting comfortable, and discontinuing thought to create that awareness and connectedness to your deeper self. The first thing you need to pay attention to when preparing to practice meditation is the space you use. Avoid your bedroom, your office, or your kid's playroom. Your body is attuned to certain habits in those areas, and practicing meditation in the room where you sleep is only going to encourage your body and your mind to sleep. You want to be comfortable, but not so comfortable that you're also asleep. And music is great, but try to avoid lyrics. There are 4 types of meditation that most traditions embrace: seated, standing, walking, and laying down. But we're going to do a simple seated meditation today. When we finish, we want to focus on walking in the new energy we create during our meditation, embodying that energy. And with every step we take, we're taking one step closer towards our desired intentions. In this process, we're not only modifying our behavior, we're laying down new emotions for our thoughts, our words, and our actions to follow. If we practice this enough times, then we'll begin to not only carry that energy with us throughout the day, but embody it. This type of repetition will make us more mindful in waking hours, and before we know it, we'll start feeling, thinking, and behaving differently. If you're taking notes, get ready to write some stuff down. For today's example, I want you to think about a potential experience you want to have in your future, whether that's learning patience or understanding for a current problem you have, or maybe achieving a big goal that has always been a dream. Once you have the new experience you want to create, assign a symbol or a letter to it, and then write that down on your piece of paper. Think of some specific conditions of what you want, write down the title, intention, and list at least 4 of them beneath it. The only thing I don't want you to consider including is any mention of a time frame. Finally, on that same piece of paper, write down the title, Elevated Emotions, and list the emotions you will feel when that imagined potential happens. These different emotions are the energy that is going to carry your intent. You really have to feel those emotions. You have to teach your body emotionally what the future is going to feel like before it happens, and you have to do that in the present moment. As a quick disclaimer, I only have a couple of minutes left, so this is going to be a very abbreviated version, not a full representation. So let's get started. I want you to close your eyes and start by becoming aware of your physical body in whatever space you're in. Feel your clothes against your skin. Feel the weight of your head and your limbs pulling on your body, and feel your weight pulling on you, pressing you down into your seat. Feel the air around you and notice the sensation of it coming into and out of your body as you breathe. Sit with those sensations for a moment or two, just noticing the physicalness of existing in this one moment, followed by the next and the next. Now you're going to become aware of the space beyond your body. Take your attention off yourself, the people in your life, the things you own, the places you have to go, the needs and desires of yourself, physical and emotional, and simply practice knowing the space around you. If you get distracted, simply return to the present moment and readjust your focus. Take notice of the energy in the air, in the empty space around you, and feel it flow just like you felt your breath earlier. The world has a pulse, just like your body. It ebbs and flows. It lifts and recedes as we move through it. That energy has a life of its own. As you hold that pulse in your mind, start to form it into that letter or symbol you wrote about earlier, and the new potential it will bring. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. Invest it into something you desire and imagine it as if you're remembering the future before it happens. Take your energy, your focus, from that unknown and empty space around you that is disconnected from your physical self, and direct it toward the intention you established earlier. Let it unfold before you and allow yourself to feel the emotions that would come with it. What choices will you make? What things will you do? What will you do with your new job or greater confidence? What will you do with your new health or deeper patience? What will you accomplish when you embody that gratitude and love? When those emotions are fully formed inside of you, take a deep breath and exhale as you let them out into that empty space. Release all the excitement and hope and appreciation out into the world and let it flow from your physical body into the unknown. Next, take your left hand, place it over your heart, and bless your body with a new mind. Your body is your temple, so I want you to bless it and love it into life. Bless your life, that it be an extension of your mind, giving new life to your life. Bless your soul, that it wake you from this dream. Bless your past, that it turn to wisdom. And bless your future, that it be filled with opportunity and adventure. Bless the challenges in your life, that they initiate you into greatness. Bless the divine in you, the power within you, and ask it to move in you, through you, and all around you, and ask it to show evidence in your life that it is real. Finally, slowly bring your awareness back to your new body, to your new environment, and to a whole new time. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the world of your senses. Then get up from your meditation as though your future has already happened, not waiting for it to show up or waiting for it to happen, but feeling with certainty that events are unfolding at this very moment that will bring what you want directly to you in a way you could never imagine. And let that new possibilities find you.
Thank you so much, Luca. I'm already feeling like wishing we had more space, but I am so grateful to be brought into that awareness right now. And now we're going to invite Connie from that place to lead us forward into her practice.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm not going to do anything so fancy as a whole meditation. I'm just going to offer you maybe a little story about what some of a practice like that has looked like in my life over many years and how it's evolved. So to start, I'm going to take you back a very long ways to the year. Well, I won't tell you what year. I'll just say that like Jimmy Carter was president. Okay, this was a while ago. When I was a student at UC Berkeley, and I had something happen to me one day, and I think it was my chemistry class the first time that it happened in lecture, not even the class. That happened later in other classes too. And what it was that the professor got to a certain point in his lecture, and he said, "Now I want you to turn to page such and such in the textbook and look at those first, 2 paragraphs there. And I want you to cross all that out because this textbook is 3 years old. And based on the research that we're about to publish, this is no longer right. And I want you to write this down instead." This in a, like an introductory chemistry class to all these little freshmen who were taking it. And, over the course of my freshman year there, I had things like that happen in a number of classes where people, and not always full professors, graduate students who were TAs, would talk about the research that they'd been doing and how it superseded something that, was believed as established fact. And this just made my toes tingle when it started to happen, because I felt like, wow, I am in the place where the people get to make up stuff, where they get to, to be the ones to decide what's real and what's truth about all these scientific and medical things. And they think that I'm bright enough that if I go along with it and work the program, maybe I can be someone. And isn't that cool that I might someday be able to do that? It was really just an amazing feeling, and all the more so when, like by the end of the year, I was seeing articles in the paper that people were reading about some of the things that I'd been told, and thought, wow, I knew that a whole year ahead of time, because I was there with the people who are actually figuring this stuff out. Well, fast forward a year and a half from that, and I'm not there anymore. I'm at home. I'm chronically ill. I don't have the same body I had. I don't have the same brain I had. And I'm very, very frustrated because I'm going to the experts and I'm giving them all the information. I'm keeping major journals about everything that I'm doing and all my symptoms and everything else. And still nobody can figure it out. And there's no help. And I'm not getting better. And I'm frightened and I'm depressed. And then all of a sudden, one day, it occurs to me to remember what I had learned in that time on campus. And it wasn't any of the things I had been there to be taught in my class. It was that thing that told me that somebody had made all this stuff up, all this stuff that said these symptoms or this add up to this diagnosis. And if you do this thing, you get better. That wasn't reality. That was something that somebody had made up based on a lot of observations over a lot of years. And that at least once they had thought that I was capable of being someone who could observe that way too, and figure things out that way too. And I knew I didn't have quite the same brain, and I certainly didn't have a lab or anything, but it finally occurred me to think, well, wait a minute, I've got something none of them have. I'm inside the body mind that's undergoing this thing called illness. So maybe, just maybe, I can do something like that. But how do I start? Well, where I started was this. I realized that the first thing I was going to have to do was get to the place where I could even pay attention to anything, because I was so scattered and so depressed and so frightened. And I was really clear that I didn't want to do a thing of like some sort of practice where I would pretend that everything was all right. I had been raised in a New Thought, New Age tradition that where you did a lot of positive affirmation to get things better. And I had had it up to my eyeballs with positive affirmations that weren't working at that point. So I was just not going that route. What I ended up doing was I couldn't go to a different room or something. I was pretty much stuck in bed most of the time. But while lying down in bed, I just decided that what I would do was close my eyes and relax. And then in my mind, with my right hand, going out this way to the right, I pushed away everything that was about the future. All my concerns about was I going to make it back to school? Could I even make a plan for what to do the next week? I couldn't even do that. All those concerns, I just pushed them away. And then at the left, I pushed away all my concerns about the past. How did I get this way? What did I do? If I just get it right and write down every detail, then surely someone will figure this out. I pushed that all the way to the left, and I just let the space of now get bigger and bigger and bigger in my mind. And I said to myself, I know everything is not okay, but for the next 10 minutes, I am going to pretend it's okay so that I can feel like it's okay. And I got to where I could do that for 10 minutes. At first, that was all I could manage, was 10 minutes of feeling like it was okay. But then the next day, it was 20 minutes. And by the end of the week, it was a couple hours. And I was enjoying it so much that I had my parents take the TV out of my room. I told them I didn't want to see the morning paper anymore. I didn't want to read about what was going on in the world, because I just wanted to do that thing. And the more I did it, the more I began to notice things. Some people, focus on their breathing in meditation. I was still quite ill. And what I focused on was my heartbeat, because my heartbeat would sometimes get much faster, I noticed. I began to notice things like this, like when my mom would bring me a roast beef sandwich and I would eat that. It was different than anything else that I ate, because afterwards I would feel like sleeping and my heart would go faster and I would sweat. And when I woke up from that sleep, I would feel better. And gradually, I began to take little notes inside about those things that made me feel better afterwards, the things I ate, the supplements I took, how much exercise I did here and there, and when to stop. And by the end of about a month, I had gotten to where I could actually get out of bed and do things again. And I had developed words and techniques and I guess you could say language, my own private language for describing my symptoms and what made them better and what made them worse and what they were called. I learned to tell the difference between a shaking chill that was coming because I was getting worse and a shaking chill that was coming because something was clearing and getting out of the way. Subtle differences that I didn't see any description of in any books that I read about symptoms when people would ask you about your symptoms and things like that. And eventually I got to the place where I was showing up at the clinic where I was being treated, and they pronounced me miraculously healed from what they had diagnosed me with, which was depression. I hadn't taken a single antidepressant or done any of the things that had been recommended to me, but I had pulled out of it. And then a few years later, on the other side of becoming a Christian, I had the most interesting experience of encountering a friend in Jesus who I experienced as coming into the reality of my body and being there to point me quicker towards noticing which things it was that were helping me or harming me. I identified very much with the psalm that says, "This is the path, walk in it." And then a few years, or actually a number of years beyond that, came the reality of being in support groups with other people who had been through illness, and eventually being Jan's partner as she went through illness, and learning to pray. And the prayers that that I learned to pray weren't pretty much the oh, heal me, you know, the come with the miraculous, come with the divine that's gonna erase everything that's wrong and replace it with what's right. It was more about that experience of being able to pay attention to your own body, to be attention to the spirit within, leading you to what step by step makes things better. And to this day, when I pray, part of the practice that I'm doing now is I've been praying. I get a little email every week from the Marin County Department of Health telling us how many people with COVID are in hospitals in Marin. And I pray those prayers virtually from the background over that hospital room of every one of those people. You know, I pray for their doctors, I pray for them, I pray for their family members to be able to sort out what works for that one person in that one place and send that energy their way. And I get much calmer about the whole COVID thing. I will tell you, every time I do that concrete thing for someone else. So that's my story about healing, about the divine, about Jesus, about embodiment. And I'm sticking to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Connie. We appreciate you sharing your story. And I've been so grateful to join you in prayer and be led by you in that. So I'm so grateful. And I know so many others are too. All right, now I have the special joy to introduce you to somebody who I've known, you know, like her whole life, because it's my little sister is here, our special guest today. So I'm just going to go ahead, and she doesn't need a lot of introduction, but I'll just say, Mandy is one of the most embodied humans I know. She has spent decades studying, living through the school of life, and through her vocational growth and living into her calling, to learn holistic health, to become a holistic health practitioner and body worker. And I'm so grateful for the wisdom that she has cultivated and passed on to people like me. And I'm excited for her to share with all of us this morning. So let's go ahead and welcome Mandy.
Hi, Haven. Thank you so much for welcoming me here. I'm also here with my eldest daughter, Dahlia. She's very excited to be a part of the community and see what Auntie Leah gets up to with all of you in Berkeley. So I have been a somatic body worker and massage therapist for over 20 years. And I know many of you are aware of my own healing journey. And I thank you now and always for your prayers and support through myself navigating a cancer diagnosis and living with metastatic breast cancer. And I want to share with you some actual somatic physical practices that we can all do together, specifically of self-touch. Because as Luca and Connie were speaking to, as well as Jeannie with the trauma therapist speaking to, touch is a way that we have constant access to helping support down-regulating our nervous system and engaging the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of our bodies that is absolutely responsible and necessary for any level of healing or state of relaxation, an experience of benevolence, that experience of union with the divine on a physiological level requires the parasympathetic nervous system to be involved. So activities like mindfulness practice, like Luca was taking us through, activities like personal somatic tracking that Connie was referencing, and activities of actually getting our hands on our own bodies really help the nervous system to come online and in coherence at a much slower pace so that we can actually physically experience what it is to be integrated. So that's what we're going to do today. And just like we would if we were going to warm up for vocalization before we were singing, or we were going to warm up a little bit for before a big exercise workout, we're going to warm up our bodies a little bit. So I just invite you to, if you feel called to join us, start with some self-healing touch. We're going to get our wrists and hands involved here. We're going to bring them online, help them feel good. So we're just starting with some easy wrist circles. If this is available to you, it's a great way to start, both directions. You just want to explore the space with your wrists. And then from there, we're going to actually stretch and open our entire palm and the thenar eminence and every finger by stretching out our arm right in front of us, right out straight from the shoulder joint, and then taking your other hand and very gently, very slowly just opening up that palm. As opposed to in a high intensity exercise workout or a yoga class where maybe they're encouraging you to go right up to your edge, in this practice, I actually discourage that. Stay well within your edge, meaning really just allow the breath, the deep diaphragmatic breath, and gravity to slowly open up all of the little muscles and connective tissue here in the carpals at your wrists. Slowly and gently, and then let's do it on the other side. And like with those tracking practices, you just kind of drop into the breath, noticing, seeing how with just a few breaths, that wrist of just staying still and with gravity can really begin to feel different and open up all of that kind of binding connective tissue in the hands. So shake that out a little bit. Now what we're going to do is one thing that I think really helps support a great quality of touch, and this is wonderful for your own self-touch or to start a dialogue with a partner or a roommate or a child that you might be engaging in touch with, is what actual quality of touch do you like? That's a wonderful place to start in tracking, sensation tracking. And something that I have found in the 20 years of giving body work at both, I've attended over 60 live births. I have been present for 3 human beings as they transitioned out of their bodies, and everyone in between at different lifespans of navigating their own healing crisis or in their pain body. And in my own physical receptivity, what I find is that a broader tool really feels good for creating a complete touch as opposed to a pointy tool. We want to use a broader tool. So I'm talking here when it comes to our hands about our finger pads as opposed to our finger points. And so also the heel of the hand, this where the thumb comes in, is the thenar eminence part of our hand, feels so good to receive with. So we're going to start by warming up those parts of with all of the technology that we're doing, our fingers, our phalanges are getting a lot of use. But this actual part that requires real strength of hand, like guitar players definitely can understand, the thenar eminence is what we're going to get into right now. So instead of moving from our fingertips, we're going to move from this pad, and you want to try and bring that thenar eminence to every little joint of the hand, the base joints of the fingers. Just see if you can squeeze from that place. Good. Both hands. Now we're really kind of getting some mobility and activity in the hands that are going to be helpful, because as you see, when I'm doing this, it kind of looks like as if I was going to milk a goat. You know, we want that kind of feeling. Now we're going to actually take that to our bodies and start kind of doing this grasping down our arms. Watch as I almost kind of grasp or knead and take that soft tissue of my forearm away from the bone, like I'm milking it or kneading it. With all that sourdough baking happening in quarantine, this is going to help you with kneading all of your baked goods. And you want to just draw that away from the bone. Check in again with your breath. And then let it start coming in up into the upper arm. Pull that tissue away from the bone. Check in with your shoulders. We don't want, as we're touching ourselves or any time through the day, we're sitting so much at the computers, we don't want to be wearing our shoulders as earrings. So there's a way to do this with our shoulder blades still coming down the back of our rib cage. So you just keep checking in with your shoulders as you're touching your arms and bringing it up into the shoulder, gripping and pulling that skin away from the bone. All right, now shake that out. Let's kind of get these arms moving like they're wings. Very good. I love seeing all these wings spreading. Mommy, these are best for you. Thank you, darling. All right, now we're gonna bring opposite hand to opposite armpit. We're gonna help support our first line of defense for our immune system, our lymphatic system. We're gonna do some gentle kind of circles of the lymph nodes right at the armpit. Great, I'm loving all of you that are choosing to have your screens visible, seeing everybody getting their lymph circles going. And this quality of touch here, anytime we're working with the lymph, is actually quite light because the lymphatic system exists right at the surface of the skin. And it's helping draw all of the lymphocytes, all of the waste product in our cells back to our eliminatory systems and into our vascularity, into our hearts, into our veins. So let's make sure we get the other side. This doesn't have to be a deep, if you're into the muscle belly, it's too deep. So it's really quite surface level, but it helps all of that accumulated fluids that we just moved through the arm. Now we're helping that come back to the eliminatory system. We're going to do that same kind of lymph activity for right up here at our shoulders. I know this is a spot where so many of us carry chronic tension, stress of the day, but we're going to start with a really light lymphatic touch again. So thinking about how that lymphatic system is right at the skin, we're almost just going to kind of drag the hands down and over. Just a very light dragging. And what this is doing is helping pull all of that potential accumulated toxicity that sits in stagnant fluids that may be kind of at that junction where your upper back becomes your neck and head, pooling there in those tissues that are so chronically tight for us. We're just going to pull them forward. And again, check in with the breath. What is the breath doing? Can you draw that breath down? And just a few little light circles right here, right at your clavicle, the collarbone. Again, this is for your lymph, helping it drain into the chest where it can move back to the eliminatory system. Now we're going to really get into the muscle belly of this spot where so many of us have a tension dump. So now you can really start to use those kneading hands that we practiced and get in there. This is where you're kneading that sourdough. And then I know from here, I really want to honor time. And so just from here, take the agency of your body and the ownership and knowing of your own highest good to move to your body wherever wants to be touched right now. Whatever the first instinctual thing is when you check in, when you take a breath, where do I want to be touched right now? And move to that place and make contact. So for those of you who maybe that practice isn't as available, like maybe an answer didn't just fall in, one way that I've helped to cultivate that sense of agency or an understanding, intuitive knowing of what my body is desiring is by really slowing down contact. So I'll finish with one last practice that I like to do that also helps to kind of give you a sense of, again, that quality of touch. So what I like to do, I call this sandbag hands. And I just take my face in my own grasp. And I just really still my thoughts, so much like a mindfulness practice, to just only continually returning to my breath. Just noticing, tracking, no need to force or change what's happening with the breath, just noticing. After a few breaths, I begin to bring my attention and awareness into all of the contact points that are happening right at the surface of my skin, of my face, and the surface of my hands pressing against my face. Begin to see if you can expand the surface area of your hand making contact with your face. There's a Foo Fighters music video that I often imagine during this, where they had a really great animation of gigantic hands, almost like Mickey Mouse gloves. And begin to imagine as if your hands are in fact sandbags, dense yet soft and malleable. Notice what it feels like to just cradle this beautiful face. And from here, this is oftentimes where I will sit in contemplation. Where would I like to be touched? And when that transmission comes through, trusting that it is divine, that there is no separation, and that message is a transmission of what would best serve this divine body, and move with it, whether it makes sense or is what you expected or not. So I hope this serves. I would love to take you deeper into the neck and head and face if ever that behooves you. And it's a pleasure to be here with each of you. And I hope you feel inspired to explore self-massage and this tactile, beautiful, embodied being that you are more fully. I love that your community is doing this. It is truly moving. It's amazing. So thank you for inviting me to be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was amazing. So helpful. I'm going to invite Izek now to come and share with us a reflection on embodiment.
Hey, everybody. So I'm going to share some of my thoughts and reflections around embodiment, and more so around my struggle and journey with that as a trans person. So just as an FYI, my reflection does talk about gender dysphoria. So please take the space or self-care that you need. So I've always loved movement. It's natural to me. It's what grounds and connects me. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I even majored in kinesiology and taught physical education for 6 years. During this pandemic, walks and hikes have been my saving grace. And I love movement so much that if I could be reincarnated into any being, it would surely be a dog. Yes, my dream life is to spend all day chasing frisbees, tennis balls, and squirrels, but in a friendly way, of course. But so these last couple months have given me ample time to incorporate movements into my everyday life, something I have had a hard time doing before the pandemic. And these past couple months have also given me a lot of time and space to feel, reflect, and connect with my body. Without the hustle and bustle of life, it is harder to repress, avoid, and numb internal struggles. And that's a good thing. I mean, it's definitely hard, but it's good. As I mentioned, I thrive off of movement. And at the same time, I have also had a very strained relationship with it. From a young age, I developed many unhealthy exercise habits so I could look more masculine. Before taking gender congruence measures, I did whatever I could do to hide a body that could be viewed or seen as female. My hips were my biggest cause of my gender dysphoria. They were frequently pointed out by my female friends because they loved how voluptuous they made me look. And as a trans guy, that was the absolute last thing I wanted to hear. My hips were also the giveaway marker for people who were confused about my gender. Too many times I was told, well, I knew you were a girl and not a boy because of your hips. So to counter this, I worked out excessively to build a larger upper body and slimmer hips to look more masculine. I was so obsessed with changing my body that I would cancel plans with friends if I knew it meant I couldn't get a workout in. I had a very strict diet. I injured myself multiple times from lifting too heavy of weights and from not resting even when I felt pain. And to this day, I still have issues from some of those old injuries. Therapy and taking gender congruence measures help tremendously with feeling at peace and connected with my body. I don't have the same level of dysphoria that I used to, but loving my body has been a journey, and that is especially so for those bodies that don't fit society's norms. As I have had time to exercise and be more self-aware during this pandemic, I've caught myself with some of those old oppressive thoughts and negative emotions about my body as it relates to my masculinity. To be honest, there's still a part of me that feels happier and prouder when I have more muscle. There's still a part of me that feels dissatisfaction when parts of my body don't look a certain way. I still critique my body. I still injure myself from time to time from not listening to my body, although less frequently now. And there's still a part of me that ties my self-worth to how masculine or cis-conforming my body looks. These thoughts aren't actually new, but acknowledging that this is still an area I need to work on is new. Before the world's pause, it was so easy to just ignore these uncomfortable thoughts and feelings because there was always something else that needed to be done or somewhere else where I needed to go. Intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, I know how toxic these beliefs are. As I was writing this, I was wondering, why is it that after so many years, I still hold on to these destructive beliefs? Why have these beliefs plagued the trans male community? There are many reasons for all of this, as after all, we live in an oppressive society that is built for white, able-bodied, cisgender, and hetero men, but that convo is for another day. With embodiment, I know that there is no rush. There is no perfect road. It takes vulnerability. It takes time. It takes intentional reflection. It means deconstructing and reconstructing. Pushing back on the oppressive systems and beliefs that tell me my body is not good enough, and rather embracing and loving my trans body is a very radical thing. To see the divine within me, moving through me, and all around me is radical. Light shining on this darkness is painful, but it is so, so worth it. Because when we truly know our worth and value, it is like the tomb cracking wide open, the earthquake shaking us to our core, and our bodies resurrecting with immense freedom, divine power, and new life. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Amen. Oh, thank you, Izek. Thank you so much. So true. All right, we have one more practice for you before we move into some breakout and some closing worship. So we are going to turn it over to Jess, who's going to introduce the practice, and then we actually have a video to share. Oh.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I was saying hello and thank you to everyone who shared your inspiring teachings for us to become more embodied. And it's going to lead beautifully into what we're going to do right now. So we're going to be practicing something where we get more connected to the natural world. It's called a sit spot. You may have done something like this before. And ideally, this practice is done quietly. You are alone and you are outside, if you can be outside, if you're lucky enough to have a yard, a deck, a patio, or even just front steps. And if you don't want to do that, you can even go by a window, like if you're in a building where you can't get outside right now. And if you can open the window just so you can feel the breeze and use your senses, that will be great. You won't bring any notebooks or pens or a phone, and you won't be using any devices unless you really need to keep track of time, in which case I ask you to keep it on airplane mode. And the reason we're doing this is to connect with our senses. We've been doing that really beautifully already this morning in so many ways, and then to the more than human world. So we've been in a society that really values the human-centric model, where everything is either a resource or a decoration, and it's not really meaningful or animate. And I want to invite everyone to reconsider that by going outside, using your senses as best as you can. And the next practice that the video I'm going to share will help you do that. And taking in everything new. And what's beautiful about this moment in the pandemic is we're all locked inside. Our lives have been transformed. We've been traumatized, but the natural world is still going and it's thriving. So I invite you to take a look at this, enjoy, and go outside if you can. These are some exercises that are going to help you expand your awareness and expand your senses to be a little bit more connected to the natural world when you go outside or when you're doing your sit spot. And we're going to start with just a few, and they're pretty simple. I'm going to invite you to join me once you go outside or even when you're still watching indoors. And you can use one or all of these once you're out there. So we're going to start with a practice. We're expanding our peripheral vision. And we talk about this practice, it's called owl eyes. The reason we do that is because owls have a huge sense of peripheral vision. We humans in everyday modern life, we look a lot at our screens and our phones, and more so than ever before, we're focusing on this tiny pinpoint in front of us. But owl eyes are really huge and expansive, and they have this amazing peripheral vision. So they are able to not look side to side like we are, but they're able to look straight ahead at a single point and turn their head all the way around. So that when they're hunting, if they're like cruising through over a field, they can see the tiny mice running, even in the dark, with their expansive peripheral vision. So the way we do this is you find a point, fix your eyes on a point straight ahead once you're outside or even right now, and stare at it and see if you can see what's in your expanded peripheral vision even without moving your focus. Take your arms and put them out to your side, wiggle your fingers, and without moving your focus, take a look at your fingers moving in the sides of your eyes. You can tell where they are. So take them all the way back until you can't see them anymore. Bring them forward so you can just barely see them. And keep doing that practice for a little bit. You can do it vertically too. Pull your fingers all the way back and notice how far your peripheral vision goes. If you do this for a minute or two, it'll really expand. Your arms get tired, just shake them out. And then keep doing that to get a sense of your bigger peripheral vision with your owl eyes. Next, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And in this exercise, you're going to be expanding your hearing and listening by cupping your ears like this. We call this deer ears. And even if you're afraid of looking dorky outside, don't worry, because everyone's socially distancing and isolating and quarantining. We all look like dorks and everyone's wearing sweatpants right now, so it's okay to do this no matter where you are. I do it all the time. So you cup your ears, which will actually improve your hearing. Close your eyes and see what you can hear. You can also turn them this way to hear more behind you. So take a moment and do this with your hands. Close your eyes and start to notice, what do you hear? What's the furthest sound you can hear? What's the closest sound you can hear? And notice what you're hearing and what you're listening to. I'm hearing birds that are close. I'm hearing some birds that are far, some trickles of water. It's amazing what I'm noticing when I really pay attention. Next, we're going to drop back into our bodies again, and you're going to think a little bit about taste. So with your eyes still closed, what's happening in your mouth right now? Maybe you've just brushed your teeth, or maybe you just have your morning coffee. Maybe it's a good taste, maybe you don't like it so much, but just pay attention to what you're tasting in your mouth, what your taste buds are feeling, and what you're smelling as you inhale. Is there a fresh breeze? Is it warm, cool? How does it feel on your skin? And as you breathe in, continue breathing in deeper into your body. Fill up your body with fresh, cool air that's going to nourish your tree roots that are going deep into the earth. And as you exhale, you can exhale everything from your week that's been on your mind. And as you're out there doing your sit spot, if you find that your mind is wandering, you're distracted, there's people walking by, there's kids playing, there's stuff going on, you're thinking about when you have to go back inside, just try to come back to this moment, like in the meditations you probably learned from today already. Come back to your body and pay attention to any one of those senses or all of them, and notice what's going on around you. So last, I want to invite you to explore your sense of touch. Maybe you're outside on a deck and you've got the rough texture of wood next to you. You want to feel what that's like, how weathered it is. Notice what that feels like to your fingertips or the palm of your hand. Or maybe you're near some trees and you can feel their bark or what the texture is of the moss growing on them, new leaves that are being born. Whatever you have around that'll help you use your sense of touch. And I hope you enjoy your sit spot. And remember, there's no wrong way to do a sit spot. Just be quiet, sit in place, open up your senses, use your awareness, and enjoy.
Okay, we're going to send you off for 5 minutes. Come back in 5 minutes, set your timer. Go and either go outside if you have a way to do that, or just go by a window, and we'll give you a little time to do that. I know that some of you may be still returning. We're just going to go ahead and start for those who are here, knowing that folks will come back when they are ready. You gave us these bodies and you called them good. You gave us these bodies and you called them good. We are easily damaged. Have you seen the scars? That's just scratching the surface. More beneath where those are. You gave us these bodies and you called them good. You gave us these bodies and you called them good. May we love them as you do. Let us love them as you do. Inside, outside, through and through. Let us love them as you do. But we do so much damage. Have you seen the scars? We keep hurting each other. Sometimes that's just how we are. You gave us these bodies and you called them good. You gave us these bodies and you called them good. May we our flesh and bones, our hearts and hands are loved in every way. Our flesh and bones, our hearts and hands are loved in every way. You gave us these bodies and you called them good. You gave us these bodies and you called them good. I invite you to sing that with me. These bodies and you called, just again, that affirmation. Gave us these bodies and you called them good. You gave us these bodies and you called them good. You gave us these bodies and then you called them good. May we love them as you do. Let us love them as you do. Inside, outside, through and through. Let us love them as you do. Amen. Well, welcome back. I hope you've had a good, quick practice. Before we move into, we're just going to take 10 minutes today for some breakout rooms so we can just process a little bit what this has been like. I just want to acknowledge all of these were rushed, right? We could kind of feel that intuitively. We were getting little tastes of some different experiences that I think we would all do well to spend an hour on all of these. And so I just invite you to make note internally about where your body is telling you it needs to do more. I'm going to invite all of our presenters are now part of our Slack group, even Mandy, so yay. You can connect with folks to get more information, but I'm also going to invite all of our presenters, if they have notes they shared that they might be open to posting, or the reflections, if folks are open to posting it there, then perhaps we can all take some extra time, revisit. We can probably post the video if Jess is open to that, so that folks can have time to digest this more and return to it later today, later this week, and allow your body to really take the time it needs. So we're going to go ahead and move into 10-minute breakout rooms. If you haven't done this with us before, you're welcome to join a breakout room. You're going to be extended an invitation. It's just a time to go and discuss with a few people how all of this felt. I have a few prompts I'll share with you. If you'd rather not, you're welcome to just decline the invitation when it comes through Zoom and hang out here in the main room. And in 10 minutes, we'll all return for some closing worship. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll be back in 10 minutes and we'll continue from there. So we'll go ahead and open our breakout rooms. Oh, let me give the questions. In what way has this quarantine impacted your connection to your body? What role has your body played in your journey of faith? And then the final one, which experiences or reflections from today were particularly helpful, which were particularly challenging? So feel free to process any of those or whatever else feels live for you. Okay. Welcome back. Okay, so we are going to be wrapping our service soon. But before we do, we're going to end with communion and then one more song. So I invite you to stay for that. I just want to name, I'll be leading us through communion today. And as I do, I want to name that it's an embodied practice. Jesus sharing an intimate meal with his followers is the story we're remembering. John reclining at Jesus's breast, them breaking bread together, sharing the same communal cup. Jesus calls out in that Last Supper the breaking of his body, the spilling of his blood. These both name the embodied way that God reveals God's self in solidarity with those whose bodies have been rejected. He lives fully into the reality of physical suffering and oppression, and he invites us to an expansive but intimate table that welcomes all to be present, to lean in on the divine breast and to find connection with God and God's choice to be known through this self-giving love. So the practice of communion mysteriously reminds us of the intangible care for all creation, expressed in a very tangible way through the bread we eat and the wine we drink. So I invite you today to enter into that invitation and experience communion as this embodied practice with any elements you have. And if you don't have elements, to just receive God with you. So the Lord Jesus, on the night he was betrayed, took bread, and having given thanks, he broke it, saying, "This is my body, broken for you. Whenever you eat of it, remember me." And in the same way, after supper, he took the cup, saying, "This cup is the new covenant sealed in my blood. Whenever you drink of it, remember me. Therefore, whenever we eat the bread or drink the cup, we proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." Jesus invited his followers to experience his love for them as he poured out his very life on their behalf. So in the same way, in the next song, you are invited to eat and drink with Jesus. Take communion in whatever way works for you. And if you don't have elements available, just welcome God to be present with you. We're going to end with one more song. And this is my contribution to this conversation on embodiment. This song is one that I've been working on in recent weeks. So you're going to learn a new song here. And it's been partly connected to this conversation we've been having around resurrection. Because resurrection is also an embodied reality. It's the idea that in a real embodied way, after loss, after pain, after death, we can somehow rise. So I invite you to sing or just to listen and to reflect with me as we learn this new song. It's all become a bit too much to bear. This weighty world with all its grief. The heart is stretched too thin to hold the care. The mind too numb from all it sees. I sense a spirit growing weak in me. I feel the frailty of my flesh. So as the hope around me starts crumbling, I hear my soul sing from the dead. Won't you help me now? Help me rise. I've been very low, where darkness closed my eyes. Take these old dry bones and breathe new life. Come and fill me up and watch me rise. I know this isn't how it's meant us rise. Amen. Amen. May God bless you and keep you. May God make God's face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God lift up the countenance of the divine on you and bring you peace, friends, in all of your being. Amen. So thank you for joining us for this special service on embodiment. Thank you to all of our presenters for all of the wisdom that you brought to us. And we will be back next week for another virtual service. We're going to end the live stream in just a moment. You're welcome to hang out if you're in the Zoom call, and we'll have a casual coffee hour kind of chat afterwards. But otherwise, we will see you next week. Thank you.